be like.
Are you gonna pull up? And off the hand. Stop for a second. Come on, dude. Well, this is rather serendipitous, I'd say.
Yeah. I just got a little nervous. That was really weird.
We just pulled Jake in from the street walking by.
It was street walk. I got my board. I mean, it wasn't like I was reading the plaque outside, and I was like, okay, where the best looking women are. Man,
I thought you were looking at one of the strip joints. Like, which one am I going to?
Well, do you remember the? Well, you wouldn't know because you weren't around, but. This was on Broadway over there. Black Flag will play over there, and then the Stone over here. Metallica. Right. There was Wars in the Street. You know the cop, the piggy that works up at the. He hangs
Alvarez.
out. Yeah. Yep. He's like Johnny. He's like he remembers it. It was War.
No, absolutely.
It was War.
It was fucking stoners against heavy metal kids, and then Latino kids had to fill in the middle.
No, I seen like some gnarly shit.
I seen
But what are you doing? You're just cruising around?
Well, I was out skating some curbs and shit.
But how did you end up in North?
He's always around here. Oh. He's like one of the 5 people I know that I see here from the outside world.
And I creep around. When I do come back, I always go through the tunnel. Orient Express. It's pretty popular. It's good because I get to the big curbs and shit down there. It's like
that's pretty random.
Serendipitous. That's a good big word, Tom. You can't even swim, and you know big words like that.
That's pretty good.
I'll let you guys get back to you and yours. I know it's a beautiful day, Tom. If you ever want me to shoot the shit like for you and me, Jeremy Fishy's.
I'd watch that.
London Breach needs more makeup.
Yeah.
People are going to be like, this guy's got weird mojo, or they paid the Phelper to show up.
Totally. People aren't going to think that was random. But whatever. I don't give a fuck.
I'll take a Phelps cameo, however it comes.
That was great. It was good to see him. So you split print time, you split everything, and then you're like you said, you've basically been doing exactly what you've been doing for the last 14 years. You left 2004, maybe you said, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So that's pretty incredible, and you sustained yourself, and it seems as though you're doing good. Yeah.
Part of the reason I moved here in the mid-'90s was literally half as much to live here as it was New York. I got into those 3 schools. Yes, I wanted to bomb hills. Yes, I wanted to come here to pursue nice weather and skateboarding. It was also literally half as much as it was to go to New York and go to SVA. So to think that 25 years later, a lot of the scenes and things that exploded and came out of here, 25 years later, this is the most expensive city in the country by 1/3.
Yes.
It's just amazing to see sort of the trajectory of the city happening, and with all the technological discoveries and all this amazing, clever energy that the Bay Area has sort of always had, in my opinion, in many different niches, all growing at the same time out of the mid-'90s. It was a very, very, very special place at that time.
Yeah.
Not just because of the scene I was paying attention to, but music coming out of the Bay Area and tech coming out of the Bay Area and the future of the internet and all these things that were very, very, very progressive compared to the rest of the world. It's not a melting pot that people usually give us credit for. It's there was a lot of super, super progressive energy here, and people I don't think ever look at it as that time period. Like you said, timing has everything to do with this kind of growth in your life, and for me, I never would have guessed that when I moved here it was that time, but it absolutely was. It was a real magical time in San Francisco's history, and like I said, not just for skateboarding or me or art. It was just a lot of crazy energy here.
A lot of energy, a lot of creative output happening.
Absolutely.
On all fronts. We're in North Beach, which is one of the oldest neighborhoods in San Francisco. Basically, it's they kind of call it Little Italy to some degree, right?
I do, for sure.
Yeah.
Depending on who you ask.
Yeah, I think of that as New York, but I always just thought of it as North Beach, So it's more of like the Italian community. We're in a very historic neighborhood that's changed drastically and diminished because of Chinatown is encroaching and the tech and everything's just encroaching. And so this neighborhood's getting smaller and smaller. But you're here kind of holding it down for the neighborhood. You're kind of like the unspoken mayor, right?
Or the biggest idiot.
Or the biggest idiot.
I don't know.
Well,
I was always raised to have this debt of gratitude. One of the first things I mentioned when we start talking is Fausto and Eric and Dustin, because that's how I got here.
Yeah.
This neighborhood has a lot to do with how I got to where I am, wherever that may be. My art school is walking distance from here, and
How long have you been in the neighborhood?
14 years now. Yeah. But I started here. When I came here to go to school, I spent a lot of time around here, but I didn't know anybody that lived over here. It's always been gently. There's some little holdovers of beatnik culture and a lot of SROs and some weird funky stuff that goes on Broadway with all the strip clubs as far as cheap places to live.
Yeah.
But even when I was in school in the 90s, no one lived over here. It's just it's a little bit isolated, it's a little bit expensive, it's a little bit touristy. At one time it was on that list of the top 10 tourist destinations in the US with the Grand Canyon and Disneyland, that walk from Fisherman's Wharf through North Beach into Chinatown, and I love that. Like my hometown, as well as it is famous for the oldest continuous running skate park in New York, is the oldest continuously running horse racing track in the country, and as a result is full of crazy, sketchy tourists, and I lived on the street where the track was, so I'm used to tourism. As a matter of fact, I kind of like it. If the people really suck, they're gone in a week, you know? Like you've got this rotating cast of characters, keeps things interesting, keeps the faces changing, and I've always really loved that about here, just because I went right from this funny tourist town right to this funny tourist town. I love that this is where the city is rooted. Like this is where the dawn of the city happened during the gold rush, and it was obviously way sketchier then than it is now. It's a very interesting part of the city that I've always been in love with, and I have this really unusual relationship with it. I'm really proud to have that, you know, like as a student, if somebody had been like, in 25 years, you're gonna be a big idiot, and you're gonna sacrifice everything important to you and relationships and friendships and your family because you're in love with a neighborhood, like figure that out before it gets to be too late, you know, but I can't help it. Like I'm very grateful to this city and very dedicated to this city because I just didn't expect to be doing this when I moved here, you know? I literally thought I was gonna borrow money, live here for a hot minute, skate the shit out of it, and then probably go back to where I was and go back to being a busboy.
On that note, speaking of your dedication to the city, yesterday, one day ago, is Jeremy Fish Day, proclaimed by the mayor of San Francisco, correct?
Our late Mayor Ed Lee,
Yeah. I mean, so I wish we would have done it yesterday. That would have been amazing. On Jeremy Fish Day, that would have been super rad.
Yeah, if this discussion is I'm underperforming, it's because I'm deeply hungover. You have to go out by yourself and celebrate your own holiday, otherwise it would just be a big waste.
So I'm curious about how you became the unofficial mayor of North Beach. Like, you would just walk around the neighborhood, I assume, and you had your local spot. You go to Cafe Trieste, right, or wherever for your coffee, and then you go to this local bar, et cetera, and you just became friendly with the people, or how did that?
I'm not the official mayor. I'd imagine that would be our district supervisor, theoretically.
Sure. But you just seem, this guy, everyone in this neighborhood. Every single time I come here and I go to anywhere, I walk in and there's some of your art hanging, or there's a big mural on the side of the wall, or you're walking down the street, it's like, hey, Jeremy, you know.
I think it has to do with what I was saying earlier, how, like, when I was in school, I was always like, who the fuck lives over here? Like this neighborhood, I'm an Italian American. I was always attracted to that side of this neighborhood. It was historically an Italian district. Yeah. Like your family had a fisherman in the wharf and you had a restaurant here, and there was this relationship with Italian families moving here to feed the city. And like, it is still like that. You know what I mean? Like there's a grip of Italian-owned restaurants, some Italian American-owned for generations, some by close friends of mine who moved here in the last decade from Italy just to crack open a restaurant in the most expensive city in the country,
which is
and one of the most expensive neighborhoods. And so I take a great deal of pride in the fact that this neighborhood has really taken good care of me, much like the city. A lot of that is I like to barter. I worked in restaurants forever until this job paid the rent. I just understand how hard that is to do, and I like having this relationship when I go into these places that you can't pay for. I don't do it all over the city as much, but like in my neighborhood, I always thought, like, if I could barter with these places where I could eat for free or drink for free for the rest of my life, it would lower the risk that I'd go out of business, because, I appreciate you saying I'm real clever, but I'm not, and I'm really bad at math, and running my own business has been crazy over the years. And so having the support of this neighborhood where it's like, I think I'm at 12 restaurants within 10 blocks that I can eat and drink at until I die, it just seemed like a great way to, it's not just like padding my bank account and being able to live here and eat well. It's a relationship you just can't pay for in the most expensive city in the country. I won't be able to live here forever, most likely. I can't afford to own a home. I'm looked after by my landlord and his family to even be living where I am. Yeah. I want to enjoy a quality of life here that you can't buy no matter how many apps you've developed. Yeah. I go into these places and I'm treated like family, and considering my family's 3,000 miles away and I live alone with a cat, that's just something you can't ever imagine.
That's incredible.
It is the reason I'm still here, and it's not for the free food. It's that this neighborhood makes me feel like I'm family. I called myself the unofficial mayor just to reinforce it, make sure more restaurants will ask me to trade for free food. Yeah, in August, I will have lived here 25 years.
Wow.
And man, I have a lot of, like I said earlier, this like debt of gratitude is because, man, are you serious? When I borrowed all that money to come here, if somebody's like, in 25 years, they're going to give you a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
And that's why when he was like, what'd you do on your day? I was like, to be honest, I sat home and drew pictures with my cat because I don't want to lose this job. You know what I mean? Like, if it wasn't for staying home and drawing pictures, I wouldn't have had a day, and you better celebrate it responsibly or you won't be here celebrating for much longer. You know?
And do you have that work ethic where you just like clock in, clock out kind of thing? In the sense of like every day you just get to work?
I did for most of the time I've been doing this job. I had some health issues over the last few years. I had a brain aneurysm, which led me to have epilepsy, and that changed my work ethic because like I may have got it from working too hard.
Right.
There's no real factual evidence to support it, but they do say stress and lack of sleep, and somewhere between when I left Think and then I got a brain aneurysm, I didn't sleep a whole lot. Right. I didn't have a ton of friends. I wasn't in serious relationships. I mostly did what I felt like I was here to do. And again, I wasn't as good as the guys I looked up to, so I worked at it extra hard because I just didn't want to lose the opportunity or take what I'd done for Fausto and Eric for granted, and that happened in 2015. Since then, I don't work as hard, which is an embarrassing thing to say out loud for a guy who doesn't want to lose his job, but I got scared.
Yeah,
I like put everything I had all into one basket and then almost died and realized that that's a weird way to live your life, and you should probably do more than like cheerlead for a city that you don't spend much time hanging out in, you know? Like for a lot of those years, I just worked and go to the airport and come back and hide in North Beach and work and then go to the airport. Over the last 3 years, I've tried to enjoy my life more, have more fun, travel more for the hell of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do have a really good work ethic just because I had a lot of really shitty jobs until this one paid the rent, but I'm slacking for sure.
Well, I'm not quite sure. I think you've come to the realization that there's a balance to your well-being that's necessary to
and something that I had to learn the hard way. I was giving it my all until I realized I wasn't ready to die, and so I better take some of my all back and enjoy my life or enjoy what I've worked for or whatever. But yeah, it's a good life lesson. Like you can work your ass off to get where you want, and you can overcome the fact that you're not super good at something and you really want to be good at it, and like all those things happened. But you also need to take better care of yourself and enjoy your life. And I stopped skating as much. About 10 years ago, I broke my ankle. And I think that was really the time where I went from like still skated a few days a week and like kicked it with my bros doing nothing.
Yeah.
When that ended was right around when I stopped working in the skateboard industry like on a daily basis. And that's when it was like sink or swim. I better just kill myself to get this job to work, or otherwise, you know, gonna be that dude sitting on the sidelines at Potrero waving a pennant for my friends, you know, like it's not really where I saw myself at 50.
Yeah.
But I am tiptoeing back into skateboarding a bunch. I just missed it. Like I missed doing board graphics. And you know, like other than the several hundred I did at Think, I've done a lot since for other companies and other brands, and I do them here and there when a cool opportunity comes up. I like making really weird skateboards because I worked in manufacturing and like I know some of the capabilities, and working with some of these brands that still cut all their own shapes. I imagine a lot of diehard dudes think that stuff's really wacky, but I do like making like that board I made a couple years ago that was just covered in hair and like some shit like that where it's not practical, but maybe because of this background I had working in screen printing when they were still getting made traditionally, and working with the guys at RPM when the boards were getting made, like that kind of shit is like in me. And like I said, I stepped away from it because when I was younger, I remember thinking like, I don't want to be one of these 50-year-old guys telling 20-year-old guys what's cool when I was a 20-year-old guy.
Yeah.
But now I'm approaching 50 and I want to tell 20-year-old guys what's cool. I mean, it's a fucked up thing, but I am going to try and kind of enter back into that realm a little bit in the next year.
We don't know what's cool when we're old.
No. I'm also realizing now I really didn't ever know what was cool, even at 20 when I was preaching to those guys that I worked for. Like, you don't know what's cool. I do. No. I didn't know it was cool then. I was just as big of an idiot as I am now.
That's how it goes.
But the draw to communicate in that world, especially because it's kind of how I got to the world I'm in now, is really important to me. And, you know, I took a few years off to like get some clarity and understand what my relationship was to it. You know, much to the conversations we're having today and how like clear I am about all those memories. It is something that made me who I am, and is something that I legitimately have a voice and still want to have that conversation. And
once you're a skater, though, you will always be a skater, because even just everything that you see or understand the world around you is changed forever.
And I don't think that's just like skateboarding teaches you to look at architecture and athleticism differently. It's kind of life, it's the philosophical like life without a coach.
Yeah.
You know, like when I was growing up, I played soccer a shitload. And on the first day of 7th grade, I was like way into it. You know, like as a little kid, you play in City League in upstate New York against other neighborhoods, and somebody's dad was the coach, and you mostly just like kick kids and push them over and run really fast. Yeah. On the first day of 7th grade, I went to soccer to sign up and become like a guy who played soccer for my school. And like the first conversation, the guy was like, you know, you all get into soccer to have fun and like be around the kids in your neighborhood, and you're not having fun anymore. Like you're playing for this school and you're listening to me. And I was like, fuck off, you know, like see ya. Like, and I think from there, it was skateboarding like the next day. And I think it's more about the philosophy of not listening to a coach, like living your life without that much direction. Like I grew up in a single family home with a mom and a sister who made sure I didn't murder anybody or turn out terrible. You know, other than that, there wasn't really any coach. There wasn't anybody being like, don't eat that, don't do that, don't go there. I mean, life without a coach can be described in many different recipes, but I think skateboarding is that. Like you're just, I'm gonna go down that way, I'm gonna bomb that hill, I'm gonna go right or left. There's nobody there telling you that's right or wrong, and that creates a lot of like self-driven young people. I think that transfers and bleeds into the rest of your life. Like I'm gonna work for those guys, I'm gonna learn that skill, I'm gonna quit working for those guys, I'm gonna go do this, and I attribute it absolutely 100% to the philosophy of just not having a coach in general. My whole social circle is still guys that I've been friends with since that summer when I was 13 and people I've met since then. I mean, the Silly Pink Bunnies, which is the name of my fucking website, is basically the 10 dudes I started skating with in junior high school we've all moved around the country and developed this like gang of 100 dudes around the world that are all kind of from the same no coach philosophy that, you know, whatever it is they're doing for a living one way or the other in their 40s or late 30s. Meeting like-minded people that are also in this thing, which can also develop into being your family and your circle of influence. And I think a lot of that is the reason I kind of want to get back into it, is like, even though I don't skateboard on a daily basis anymore, and when I do, it's fairly tame and more of a Captain Kick-Turn scenario than a giant stink bug, it is still the people I spend most of my time with. You know, to have those kind of people reminding you of who you are and where you came from, and reminding you that influence and that structure of how you view the world without a coach will probably always be in there. And especially because the closest people in my life, other than my mom, sister, and grandmother, is this network of 100 ridiculous grown men that go by the Silly Pink Bunnies. And that is also very inspiring to me, and what I consider to be like my family at large. And all that sort of stems from, we all learned about the world together from the vantage point of this unusual, self-driven, let's all hurt ourselves and then sit around and brag about how hurt we are, you know? Like, it's a really, really unusual way to become adolescent into adult. And sure, like along the way, you lose a lot of adolescents that never become adults like me. No. That circle of influence won't ever go away. And I imagine I was thinking about it the other day when I was kind of like talking about doing board graphics again. I was like, this will probably continue to come and go throughout my life until I die. Yeah. Like just this whole philosophy that led me to this point in my career. It's like, you know, it didn't happen accidentally. It's 100% because of buying that Santa Cruz Jammer off my neighbor when I was tiny, you know, like it really just all kind of went from there. I hope that in explaining that, you know, I did this in school, I did this for a job, I went and did this afterwards, that some, you know, 13-year-old me somewhere uses the internet like I read Thrasher and sees a possibility of like getting him out of upstate New York or somewhere with worse winters to go pursue his dreams. And you'd like to hope that when you do this thing, and I know because I'm sure it's working for kids out there, but like to see a Todd Francis or a Jake talk about their trajectory can help invigorate some kids, you know, enthusiasm to go do something awesome. You know what I mean? Like maybe you learn a lesson in these stories that like, oh, I'm not fucked just because I'm into this weird ass thing. Like the world is your oyster. You just gotta fucking hustle, you know? Yeah, there you go. I think that was a good way to end it right there. What do you think? All right. Thank you for being here. Thanks for having me. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.